What the hell happened to this GPU? So these are 4 GPUs I bought, all from different sellers. Let's be real, you can't expect smooth gaming without a proper GPU, unless you've somehow got the fastest iGPU in the world. Now, the price? Let's just say each one probably costs as much as a year of hard work. But don't worry, I didn't go broke for this. I got all of them for under $5 each. So today, we're gonna put them to the test in Minecraft. I know you're curious. What kind of GPUs could possibly cost less than a cup of coffee? Well, I'm just as curious to find out how many FPS these things can actually push. Let's open them up and find out. The first GPU has been unearthed, and it's got this bright green color that honestly gives me a bit of hope. Oh no. The I/O bracket's missing a screw, so it's kind of loose. Anyway, this is the NVIDIA Quadro K600, released way back in 2013. It comes with just 1 GB of DDR3 VRAM, and I grabbed it for $3.50. It was never designed for gaming, but that's exactly what makes this fun. So how will it perform in a gaming environment? And more importantly, will it even turn on? Alright, let's fire it up. Oh, what the? Total silence. Wait, did I seriously forget to press the power button? Nice one. Okay, now it's on, but there's still no signal coming from the GPU. That's not a good sign. Maybe the contacts are dirty or corroded. Let's clean it up and give it another shot. Oh my god, it's alive. Thank God. I didn't just bring home another piece of e-waste. Opening up GPU-Z confirms it. This is the exact card I paid for. Sure, it's pretty weak on paper, but who cares? Let's launch Minecraft and see what this tiny warrior can do. Once I jumped into the game, I could already feel a bit of stutter. The average FPS hovered around 30, and it was noticeably choppy at times. It's probably bottlenecked by the CPU since the GPU was clearly maxed out at 100% usage. In lighter scenes, the FPS climbed up to 40, but in complex areas it dropped hard, sometimes as low as 16 FPS. So I pushed it even further by turning on the bliss shader, and yeah, it was rough. Around 5 FPS, basically a slideshow of pretty pictures. Then I switched things up, lowered render distance to 8 chunks, set graphics to fast, and suddenly the game was flying at 60 to 80 frames per second. Buttery smooth. Even blowing up one TNT block didn't cause much lag. But what about 1,200 TNT blocks? Well, surprisingly it held steady, staying above 40 FPS. I honestly couldn't believe how stable it was. This GPU might actually be the hidden gem of the bunch. GPU number 2. Now this one actually got me excited, both for how it looks and what it might be capable of. At first glance, I noticed a little rust on the I/O bracket, probably from some moisture exposure, but honestly, it's not bad at all. No blown capacitors, no bent PCB, still holding together pretty well for something this old. This is the GT630, 1 GB made by Samsung, first released about 13 years ago. It was originally built just to replace an iGPU, a simple budget card for people who didn't want to spend much. But before long, it got replaced by the very thing it was meant to improve on. Today, it's basically forgotten, collecting dust in the corners of PC history. I bought mine for just $5, which isn't much, but the real question is, was it worth even that? Let's dig in and find out. Moving on to the second GPU, and yeah, this one really let me down. While flying around in Minecraft, it barely managed 15 FPS, and even on the ground, it only hit 25 to 30 FPS at 32 chunks with fabulous graphics. It was playable, but just barely. Then things got worse. The fan completely stopped working, and the temperature shot up to 104 degrees Celsius. At that point, it basically turned into a tiny toaster. But I decided not to replace it. I wanted to see how far it could go. Well, about 2 minutes later, it tapped out completely. A real shame. Now, moving on to our third contender, and honestly, I have no idea whether this one's gonna surprise us, or just fade into obscurity like the rest of the budget GPUs. And yeah, turns out, it's the latter. It's a low-profile GPU, no fan, no RGB, nothing fancy. The name might ring a bell for some of you though. GT710, 2 GB DDR3. This little card dates back nearly 14 years, and like the GT630, it was meant as a quick fix or an upgrade for old office PCs that didn't have integrated graphics. Even though it's running on the ancient Kepler architecture, companies like Asus and MSI were still releasing new versions of this card in 2024, which honestly says a lot about how strong the demand still is for super cheap, dedicated GPUs. It's got 3 display outputs, plenty for basic setups, but who really cares about that right now? The real question is, can this thing even survive Minecraft? Let's find out. It doesn't seem much different from the previous GPU. FPS still hovered around 25 to 30, occasionally dipping as low as 9 FPS, which was pretty brutal. When I dropped the render distance to 8 chunks, everything became much smoother and easier to control. From high above, the FPS stayed at 25, but on the ground it climbed up to around 40. Lowering the graphics to fast mode gave a big boost, over 60 FPS, easily meeting the minimum for smooth gameplay. So I decided to push it. I started with 1000 TNT blocks. It handled that surprisingly well, staying above 40 FPS. But then I went all in with 10,000 TNT. And yeah, that was the breaking point. FPS dropped to 2. Frames were delayed like crazy. I might have gone a bit too far on this one. I tried pushing it with shaders on, and yeah, that didn't go well. FPS dropped straight into single digits, around 3 FPS, and even moving around felt like wading through mud. Clearly this GPU isn't meant for admiring sunsets or reflections in Minecraft. But switching back to the default version without any graphics mods completely changed the story. It managed a solid 100 FPS on fast settings and around 50 FPS on fabulous. So if you're just looking for a basic, playable experience, this little GPU can still hold its own. This might actually be the one I've been hoping for. Right out of the box, it already looks way beefier than anything we've seen so far. And look at that, a 6-pin power connector. That's a good sign. At least this GPU was born to do more than just display Windows icons. It's the GTX 650 Ti, packing 2 GB of GDDR, 5 VRAM. A massive leap from the GT 710 DDR3. Back in its day, this was a legit mid-range gaming card, and even now, it should handle lighter esports titles without breaking a sweat. Of course, it's not perfect. The 110-watt TDP means it's not exactly power-friendly. But hey, I only paid $5 for this thing. Why so cheap? There's only one way to find out. Let's plug it in and power it up. And whoa, it booted right away. That's a good start. I tested it on the default, unmodded version of Minecraft. Graphics set to fast and render distance at 8 chunks. And honestly, the FPS blew me away. It hit nearly 400 FPS, turning this thing into an absolute beast. At that price, it already felt like a steal. At least if it could survive the rest of my tests. Switching to fabulous graphics dropped a performance to around 150 to 200 FPS, which is still really solid. Then I moved over to Fabric 1.2, 1.5 with graphical mods, and surprisingly it held steady at around 100 FPS. Dropping back down to 8 chunks gave a nice boost, sometimes hitting 220 FPS. But I wasn't done yet. Time for the TNT test. With 1000 TNT blocks, the FPS dipped to about 39, which is fine for a budget GPU. Not satisfied, I cranked it up to 10,000 TNT and turned on shaders. Big mistake. FPS crashed to 13, and after the explosion, my entire screen went black. And yeah, it hasn't turned back on since. I tried rebooting and testing it again with Heaven Benchmark, but after about a minute, the whole system crashed. Again. To be sure, I ran CS2 to see if maybe it could handle lighter gaming loads. Unfortunately, that only confirmed my suspicion. This GPU simply can't handle heavy stress. At this point, it's probably best to retire it to lighter tasks. Watching videos, browsing, or maybe running some classic games from the past. After testing all 4 GPUs, the results were honestly surprising. The Quadro K600 still managed to run Minecraft at a basic level, while the GT630 overheated and had to retire early. The GT710 did a little better. It could actually run the game smoothly on low settings, but still struggled with anything more demanding. And then came the GTX 650 Ti. For just $5, it completely outperformed the rest, delivering playable frame rates and showing real potential for budget gaming. Though it does have one major drawback. Stability under heavy load is far from perfect. So, if you enjoyed this little adventure into the world of budget GPU archaeology, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. There's a lot more classic tech chaos waiting to be uncovered.